Welcome back to The
Happy
Hook
Friday.
on Woodward Sports Network. We've got Joe Pompliano joining us here shortly. Make sure you're checking out his newsletter at readhuddleup.com. I think before the break I might have said hurdle up, but it's huddle up. Readhuddleup.com.
He's got his stories are awesome. The guy does his homework, and he has a story about the super fan that we're going to talk about for the Toronto Raptors.
He's got tons of stories. There's not one story that I've read on his social media timeline that I'm like, oh, this one sucks. Every single time I read him, I'm like, oh, this is awfully interesting. This is very interesting.
You know what the beauty is?
What's that?
Well, for me, I'm always in search of the why, no matter what it is. He breaks down the why, and you can get into it. I know why Maz loves him, because I love the same way, where it gets you in this sort of rabbit hole to go back to the history and the way that he connects them. And it's always a pleasure to have him. But it doesn't matter what sport. You know, obviously, we're going to talk about this specific one, the NBA Hall of Fame, because they just did the inductions. Obviously, Pilar was losing. If you go back to Monday's show when Vanessa Bryant was doing her tribute, what were they? The organic aloe vera eyelashes were falling off, or you were getting getting salsa in your eye or something. I don't know. There's something, but the tears were rolling down. But you know, there's so much behind it, and you can always go to him, because I know, Maz, you always do. What's Joe P got? What's Joe P got?
He's got this. It's a super fan. It's a story that you want to hear. Nav Bhatia is his name, and we got Joe Pompliano on right now. One of our favorites, my favorite follow on Twitter. Joe, welcome to the show.
Thanks, guys. That was quite the introduction there. I appreciate it.
We mean it.
We mean it. We love reading your Twitter feeds. They're great.
Tell us about Nav. What a story. I mean, you know, start us off, man. Take us. How did this super fan get in the Basketball Hall of Fame?
Yeah, this is a good one, man. So Nav was the first fan in the Hall of Fame for basketball, and his story is really incredible because, so we'll start in the 1980s. I think 1984. There was some political turmoil in India, where he's from, his home country, and he had to flee. So he came to Canada. He settled down in Toronto, and he was an educated man. He had a degree in mechanical engineering, I believe, but the problem was he wasn't able to find any work. He claims that people were kind of he faced some racial bias because of his long beard, his accent, and he wears so he wouldn't work. He applied to hundreds of jobs over the first few months, I think 6 months that he was here he was in Canada. He eventually settles for a job as a car salesman, which, you know, he was way overqualified for. It was in the rough part of town, and it just really wasn't what he wanted to be doing, right? So he accepts it, and he says today that his one mission was really just to prove that he could outwork any amount of hate, right? So that kind of struck a nerve with people. And really what he did was he just got to work, and he sold, I think it was 130 cars in 3 months.
Wow.
And I've never sold any cars, but
Maz
go ahead.
Joe, I sold
is
cars.
A car salesman here, so when he goes like that, he can give you right now, Maz. How impressive is that?
It's unbelievable. We have the number one salesman in the world that works here in Dearborn. His name is Ali Rita, and he works for a Chevy dealership, and he's number one. He has sold the most cars. I sold cars. The most I sold in a month was 30 cars. How many did Nav sell?
He sold 130 in his first 3 months on the job.
Jeez.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So, and the cool part about it is, and this will tell you how much it really is it's still a record that stands today. So no one has sold more in their first 3 months on the job than he has.
Wow.
And really I say that because that eventually led him to, he was promoted to a general manager position at a competing dealership on the other side of town. That was essentially, they were just facing bankruptcy. The owner he wasn't very involved in the business. He wanted to hire Nav because he thought he could turn it around. But the unfortunate part is when he got hired and everyone found out who he was, what he looked like, his accent, everything else about him, they all quit. Everyone except for one person at the car dealership quit, which is just unbelievable, really, right? So he goes out, and again, instead of kind of, you know, saying, "Oh, woo me," he goes out and he gets a whole new staff. He hired all new people, and he builds his car dealership up over the next 2 to 3 years. Brings them back.
What year?
This is it's got to be 1988, 1990 at this point. It's like early 90s maybe.
Okay.
So because So he gets there in 84. He doesn't start attending Raptors games until 95. So those kind of 10 to 11 years in between is really when he was doing all this work at the car dealerships. So long story short is he actually does well enough there where he saves up enough money and he purchases the dealership from the guy.
Wow.
And he turns it around and becomes one of the largest dealerships in Canada. And then what he does with the dealership is he uses the profits to buy his original dealership that he worked at in 1984. So
Jesus.
within like 6 years, he now owns 2 car dealerships when he couldn't even get a job. And these today, I mean, it's 2 or 3 decades later now, but they're massive businesses. They produce a lot of cash. And really what he ended up doing with it was it afforded him enough financial flexibility to go enjoy his other passion, which he's always said is basketball. So he's always loved basketball. Toronto got a team in 1995 is when the Raptors were the expansion team for the NBA. And the first year, he wasn't even, I don't know kind of how much he of the business. From what I read, he wasn't even, it was kind of a buy season ticket, right? So it wasn't like an obvious thing. But he bought him anyways. And in the 25, 26 years since, he's literally never missed a home game. So he's been to every game.
Through everything.
Yep.
Blizzards, the works. He's probably even traveled to Detroit because when the Raptors are here in Detroit, the Raptors fans take over the Palace and now Little Caesars Arena. They take it over. Great fans.
Well, so what I was going to say, what happened with him is 3 years in, so 1998, 3 years with them being there, they were the worst team in the Eastern Conference. They were, an expansion team, right? So they're not very good. Isaiah Thomas is the general manager, and he notices, hey, look, this guy's at every single game. He's loud as hell. He's yelling the entire time. He never leaves early, and he's never missed a game. So they actually called him down at halftime in one of the games, and they gave him an official title, which is now Superfan. So he's the Raptors Superfan. He's got the jersey and everything, and he kept doing it. So, 25, 30 years later, he's become a celebrity. Everyone sees him at games. They want to talk to him. Drake's sitting next to him at games. Like all the players know him. Everyone, right? So he's become a celebrity in Toronto. And that's essentially how he got elected to the Hall of Fame. But really what's incredible about it is that it's not that he's just been a fan of the team. He's really used the Raptors and basketball in general as a way to combat kind of the racism and the hate that he felt he experienced when he first got to Canada. And what I mean by that is one of the cool initiatives that he does outside of kind of all the other charitable causes is he spends $300,000 of his own money every single year to send thousands of kids to Raptors games. And what he intentionally does is he mixes up the tickets between black people, white people, Christians, Muslims, poor people, rich people, etc. And he makes them sit next to each other. Wow. And his reasoning for that is because he wants to, one, make change, but he doesn't want anyone to feel like how he felt when he got there. So I think, that's obviously incredible. It's an awesome gesture, and it's really cool that he's using the Raptors to do that. And the coolest part about it actually was, so I posted this on Twitter, and it ended up getting 7,000 or 8,000 likes or so. And I was shocked at the amount of people that, when you post a story like this, I think everyone kind of says, like, you always see some comments of how someone has personally affected them or impacted them. But there was just so many with Nav. There was people saying the first basketball game I ever attended was because of him. I would have never got to go to a Raptors game if he wouldn't have given us tickets. I've seen him out at a restaurant. He came over and took pictures with us. He's super nice. So just unimaginably kind things people were saying. And I've never met him, but it just really spoke to his character, I thought.
So how does the NBA and Adam Silver and everybody get him on the radar to put the fan being the first fan in the Hall of Fame? How does it come to this level? And I know that the NBA consider themselves pretty progressive, but this is the ultimate honor for anybody.
Yeah. So I think they made the decision, I want to say last year or 2 years ago, that they were going to start allowing I don't know if inducted is the right word. So essentially he was honored there. So right. He has kind of like a case with his jersey, and his turban is in there, and some shoes and stuff like that, and kind of some pictures of the Raptors winning the world title. So they decided a couple of years ago they were going to start doing that. He was the first fan, and really what it is it's a super interesting story. But the one caveat I would add is that a lot of people kind of inside the NBA, right, like the kind of the Adrian Wojnarowskis and the players and the coaches and Adam Silver, obviously, and all the people kind of surrounding, he has really good relationships with all of them. So you'll see kind of when the Raptors are on national TV, it's very uncommon for one, them not to show him on TV, and then two, you usually see players walking up to him and hugging him or greeting him or talking to him. And it's really, he's just been around forever, right? So Vince Carter days, the world title, Kawhi, like all of that, he's been there for. So he's kind of seen it all. He's seen all these players come through, and I think it was just kind of a special way for the league to honor not only him as a fan, but kind of who he is as a person.
Joe, how do you feel about Hall of Fame's? Not because you're right, it's not really like inducting them into the Hall of Fame, but etching out a little special area for fans like that. How do you feel about it? You think it should be allowed? Do you think it shouldn't? It should just be for players and coaches, or?
Yeah, it's a good question. And to be honest, I don't think there's a perfect answer. I think that it's difficult. I've heard the complaint that it's difficult to compare things, right? Like, why did he get in but not Spike Lee? Spike Lee's been a fan longer than the Raptors have been a team, right? So it's really hard to judge kind of who's a bigger fan. There's millions of fans out there that, have the man caves in their basement and they watch every game and they're super dedicated. So I think I get that part. I think it's really tough. But I think it's cool in the end. I think that he's done a lot for the game of basketball. And the Raptors specifically, but obviously just in general the game of basketball. And not only from a kind of progressing the game forward, but he's done everything right from the aspect of using the game of basketball how it's supposed to be used for bringing people together, right? And he does it every year. He puts his own money into it, and he's become a celebrity. So I'm all for it. I don't think it diminishes kind of the Hall of Fame at all. I think that they did it the right way, where they're not necessarily inducting him next to Kobe Bryant, right? They're giving him kind of an enshrinement, and he has a kind of a space in there, and he'll be remembered forever. But it's different than being inducted, I'd say.
Joe Pompliano joins us here on The Hook, at Joe Pompliano, if you want some great stories on Twitter. Before we let you go, Joe, Stephen A. Smith, very outspoken, probably the richest guy on ESPN, gets paid the most money, on SportsCenter all the time, Mr. NBA. They asked him about superfans. I want you to listen to what Stephen A. had to say.
All right, Raptor superfan Nav Bhatia is the first fan inducted into the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame. Stephen A., should a fan be inducted into the Hall of Fame?
Hell no. How do we define what a great fan is? You're a Hall of Famer. How is that defined exactly? What's the criteria? What's the standard? How many games you've attended? Who you talk to when you're there? How vehement you are when you get up and go off towards the opponent? The fan participation. I don't know how you measure that. So no, I don't agree.
In typical Stephen A. fashion, I don't agree with him, but that's his take.
I like your take, Joe.
Me too.
I like your
Me
take.
too.
And you know what? It's all about the wording, especially these days, right?
Yeah.
If you word something wrong, then you mean. So the honoring of the fan. And there could be, you could have your, just thinking about it, you could have a super celebrity, who are they fans of, honoring, because people would go to see the most support, is to see his name and his turban and his shoes, or whoever they honor. It might be something that they did every year. And that might be something on, because that's sort of what we've got into sort of as a culture. I think the wording is what goes wrong.
Right.
That's the one thing I was going to say is I think it's just when you take out of the context that he's not being inducted, and he's really just being honored by the Hall of Fame, it makes the world difference, right? You guys have probably been to some of them, and if other people have, then if you go to any Hall of Fame, whether it's basketball, baseball, football, whatever, there's hundreds of kind of casings and artifacts and important mementos from people's careers and moments and stuff like that from people that barely played in certain leagues, right? They just had a really cool moment or a really historic moment. So I think he obviously has a place in the history of the game, and I think it's cool to honor him. I don't think it diminishes what the other guys are doing at all.
Hey, Joe, thanks a million for coming on with us. We'll look forward to your next story. Can't wait till next week.
Of course, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah. Thanks for
Joe.
all the great stories. We
Follow
love having
him
you on.
At Joe Pompliano on Twitter. Phenomenal.
Thanks, Joe.